Elder Tree Mother. There once was a little boy who had taken cold by going out and getting his feet wet. No one could think how he managed to do so, for the weather was quite dry. His mother undressed him and put him to bed. Then she brought in a teapot to make a good cup of elder tea, which is so warming. At the same time, the friendly old man who lived all alone at the top of the house came in the door. He had neither wife nor child, but was very fond of children, and he knew so many fairy tales and stories that it was a pleasure to hear him talk. "Now, if you drink your tea," said the mother, "very likely you will have a story in the meantime." "Yes, if I can only think of a new one to tell," said the old man. "But how did the little fellow get his feet wet?" asked he. "Ah," said the mother, "that is what we cannot find out." "Will you tell me a story?" asked the little boy. "Yes, if you can tell me exactly how deep the gutter is in the street through which you go to school." "Just halfway up to my knee," said the little boy. "That is, if I stand in the deepest part." "It is easy to see how we got our feet wet," said the old man. "Well, now I suppose I ought to tell a story, but I don't know any more." You can make up one." "I know," said the boy. "Mother says that you can turn everything you look at into a story, and everything even that you touch." "Ah, but that kind of tale and story is worth nothing. The real ones come of themselves. They knock on my forehead and say, 'Here we are.'" "Won't there be a knock soon?" said the boy, and his mother laughed, while she put elderflowers in the teapot and poured boiling water over them. "Oh, do tell me a story." "Yes, if a story comes of itself. But tales and stories are very grand. They come only when it pleases them." "Stop!" he cried all at once. "Here we have it. Look, there is a story in the teapot now." The little boy looked at the teapot and saw the lid raise itself gradually. Long branches sprouted out, even from the spout, in all directions, till they became larger and larger, and there appeared a large elder tree, covered with flowers, white and fresh. It spread itself even to the bed, and pushed the curtains aside, and oh, how fragrant the blossoms smelled! In the midst of the tree sat a pleasant-looking old woman, in a very strange dress. The dress was green like the leaves of the elder tree, and was decorated with large white elder blooms, or elder blossoms. It was not easy to tell whether the border was made of some kind of cloth or of real flowers. "What is that woman's name?" asked the boy. "The Romans and Greeks called her a dryad," said the old man, "but we do not understand that name. We have a better one for her. In the quarter of the town where the sailors live, they call her Elder Tree Mother. And you must pay attention to her now and listen while you look at the beautiful trees, or while you look at the beautiful tree." Just such a large blooming tree as this stands in the corner of a poor little yard, and under this tree, one bright sunny afternoon, sat two old people, a sailor and his wife. They had great-grandchildren, and would soon celebrate their golden wedding, which is the 50th anniversary of their wedding day. And I suppose you know that the elder tree mother sat in the tree and looked as pleased as she does now. "I know when the golden wedding is to be," said she, but they did not hear her. They were talking of olden times. "Do you remember," said the old sailor, "when we were quite little, and used to run about and play in the very same yard where we are now sitting, and how we planted little twigs in one corner and made a garden. Yes, said the old woman, I remember it quite well, and how we wanted the twigs, and one of them was a sprig of elder that took root and put forth green shoots until it became, in time, the great tree under which we old people are now seated. To be sure, he replied. And in that corner yonder stands the water, but in which I used to sail my boat, that I had cut out all myself, and it sailed well too. But since then, I have learned a very different kind of sailing. Yes, but before we went to school, she said. And then we were prepared for confirmation. How we both cried on that day. But in the afternoon, when we went hand in hand up to the round tower, I saw the view over Copenhagen and across the water. Then we went to Fredericksburg, where the king and queen were sailing in their beautiful boat on the river. But I had to sail on a very different voyage elsewhere, and be away from home for years on long voyages, said the old sailor. Ah, yes, and I used to cry about you, said she, for I thought you must be dead and lying drowned at the bottom of the sea with the waves sweeping over you, and many a time have I got up to the night to see if the weathercock had turned. It turned often enough, but you came not. How well I remember one day, the rain was pouring down from the skies, and the man came to the house where I was in service to fetch away the dust. I went down to him with the dust box and stood for a moment at the door. What shocking weather it was! And while I stood there, the postman came up and brought me a letter from you. How that letter had traveled about! I tore it open and read it. I laughed and wept at the same time. I was so happy. It said that you were in warm countries where the coffee berries grew, and told what a beautiful country it was, and described many other wonderful things. And so I stood reading by the dustbin, with the rain pouring down, when all at once somebody came and clasped me around the waist. Yes, and you gave me such a box on the ears that they tingled, said the old man. I did not know that it was you, she replied, but you had arrived as quickly as your letter, and you looked so handsome, and indeed you are still. You had a large yellow silk handkerchief in your pocket and a shiny hat on your head. You looked quite fine, and all the time, what weather it was, and how dismal the street looked. Trying to get it to focus. And then you remember, said he, when we were married, and our first boy came, and then Marie, and then Niels, and Peter, and Hans Christian. Indeed I do, she replied, and they are all grown up and respectable men and women, whom everyone likes. And now their children have little ones. And said the old sailor, there are great-grandchildren for us, strong and healthy too. Was it not about this time of the year that we were married? Yes. And today is the golden wedding day, said the elder tree mother, popping her head out just between the two old people, and they thought it was a neighbor nodding to them. It's so hard to get it to focus. There we go. Then they looked at each other and clasped their hands together. Presently came their children and grandchildren, who knew very well it was the golden wedding day. They had already wished them joy that very morning, but the old people had forgotten it, although they remembered so well all that had happened many years before, and the elder tree smelled sweetly, and the setting sun shone upon the faces of the old people, till they looked quite ruddy. And the youngest of their grandchildren danced round them joyfully, and said they were going to have a feast in the evening, and there were to be hot potatoes. Then the elder tree mother nodded in the tree and cried, "Hurrah!" with the rest. "But that is not a story," said the little boy, who had been listening. "Not till you understand it," said the old man. "But let us ask the elder tree mother to explain it." "It was not exactly a story," said the elder tree mother, "but the story is coming now, and it is a true one. For out of truth grow the most wonderful stories, just as my beautiful elder bush has sprung out of the teapot." And then she took the little boy out of bed and laid him on her bosom. And the blooming branches of the elder closed over them, so that they sat, as it were, in a leafy bower, and the bower flew with them through the air in the most delightful manner. Then the elder tree mother changed all at once to a beautiful young maiden. Her dress was still of the same green stuff, ornamented with a border of white elder blossoms, such as the elder tree mother had worn. In her bosom she wore a real elder flower, and a wreath of blossoms that entwined in her golden ringlets. Her large blue eyes were very beautiful to look at. She was the same age as the boy, and they kissed each other and felt very happy. Continue to part 2 for the rest of the story.